Hey, it's Dan. Let's take a quick peek at the market here over the last month and talk about how COVID impacts our market and how it's impacting buyers and sellers. First thing you're going to see is that closed sales were down about 18% last month versus the same month last year. This number isn't as important right now because those sales went pending both before and during the stay-at-home order, so we can't isolate the COVID outbreak as much in that. Certainly an 18% drop in closed sales, however, is largely contributed to the outbreak. Good news, however, for homeowners and people in the market in general, the median sale price for April 2020 was 4.5% higher than April 2019, which was a little higher than the projected appreciation for that time period. If we look at houses that came onto the market in April, it should come as no surprise that we had fewer homes hit the market in April this year versus last year. We're down about 1/3 or 33%. And if we look at the number of sales gone pending, interestingly enough, these figures are just about the same. You'll notice if we round off, we wind up 33% for both, which essentially means that demand and supply have offset one another, meaning we have fewer buyers in the market right now, but we also have fewer people looking to sell their house in the market. What does that mean for you? It means that in the open marketplace right now, it feels a lot like it did before this started. There's fewer people out, but there's fewer homes for sale. It's the same as if you said you had 3,000 houses for sale with 3,000 people wanting to buy them, and then overnight you only had 300 houses for sale, but still 300 to buy them. You wouldn't really notice a difference out in the marketplace very much. This is similar to the trend we've seen on the national level. Here on this graph, the little section there in red, that is buyer activity during the early stages of the outbreak. Should come as no surprise. A lot fewer people were out when this all started. Here locally, what have we seen? Well, this graph here, don't worry about the numbers. They aren't important, just the trend. And the trend is we had 8.5% more people accessing lockboxes this last week than we did the week before. And if you'll take a look at the graph to the far right, you'll see that that number has increased since mid-March when the stay-at-home order was first issued. We've had an increase in buyer activity and lockbox openings every week. So we've continued to recover week after week. And in fact, we're currently seeing about 85% of the activity now that we saw during our peak week in March. So March is not the busiest time of the year. That falls in the summer. So we aren't there yet. But if we look at where we peaked in the spring, we're operating right now about 85% of that in terms of people getting out in houses. If we take a look here at where we were at last week versus the peak week last year in 2019, which fell in June, we're still operating at just about 70% of the capacity and the 70%, of the activity we had last year. So that's awfully good if you consider that last year was a quote-unquote normal year. To have 70% of the market activity, people out touring homes, accessing properties for sale, is a sign that the market's going to remain relatively strong here. Thanks for stopping by for a couple minutes. That's a quick update as to what's happening in the market. Next week, we're going to look at projections for the rest of the year. And a question that I get asked an awful lot, should we expect to see a rise in short sales and foreclosures as a result of this, like we saw during the Great Recession 10, 12 years ago? So we'll get to all of that next week. For now, just know that we have fewer buyers and sellers in the market right now, but as a ratio, we look a lot like we did in the early spring. So demand remains relatively high. There's a good opportunity to sell your home. If you have any questions on how to do that safely, give us a call and we can talk about the kind of precautions we're taking with both buyer and seller clients to make sure everyone is in as safe a position as possible, and also what we can do to make this as easy for you on either side of that transaction during this time as well. And of course, if you have any questions about what's going on in your neighborhood or how values have been impacted in your neighborhood specifically, reach out anytime. We'll be glad to get you some updates. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.